Owen and I had been married for 5 years when things started feeling off. It wasn't just the normal stuff, the phone guarding and late nights. It was the cruel little comments that started piling up. "Maybe if you lost some weight, I wouldn't need to work so late," he said one night when I questioned him about coming home at 2 a.m. smelling like perfume, or the time he accidentally showed our friends a terrible photo of me sleeping with my mouth open, captioned, "Living with this every night," in our group chat. When I confronted him, he said, "Learn to take a joke, or people will think you're pathetic." There was the dinner party where he interrupted my story to tell everyone, "Don't mind her, she gets confused about basic facts. It's cute but embarrassing." Then patted my hand like I was a child. My best friend texted me later, "Are you okay? Owen was being a complete asshole to you." Every year we hosted this huge charity fundraiser at our house. It was my thing. I organized everything, invited 50+ people, including all our families, friends, coworkers, and neighbors. I'd spent months planning this one because we were raising money for a children's hospital where my niece had received treatment. The night of the event, everything was perfect. We'd raised almost $15,000 in donations, people were having a great time, and I was feeling proud of what we'd accomplished. Then Owen asked for everyone's attention. He clinked his glass and said he had a surprise announcement that couldn't wait. My first thought was he'd secured some big donation. Instead, he pulled out a small jewelry box and got down on one knee in front of me. Everyone gasped. We were already married, so WTF was happening? He opened the box to reveal a diamond eternity band and announced to the entire crowd that I was pregnant after our long struggle with fertility. I was stunned. I wasn't pregnant. We weren't even trying. But before I could say anything, the room erupted. People were crying, cheering, hugging me. My mom broke down sobbing, her first grandchildren. His parents were already discussing names. My boss was there promising me extended maternity leave. Owen slipped the ring on my finger, hugged me tight, and whispered, "Just go with it," in my ear. Then he kissed me deeply, like we were having this beautiful moment. I felt physically sick but couldn't process what was happening fast enough to react. For hours, I had to pretend. People touching my stomach, giving me advice, asking about due dates. Meanwhile, Owen was beaming, accepting congratulations, acting like father of the year. I was trapped in a nightmare while fundraising for children's cancer. I couldn't even escape to cry because it was my event. When everyone finally left, I confronted him. He laughed it off, said he thought it would be cute to announce it this way, and we could just tell everyone I lost them in a few weeks. Who does that? When I pressed harder, he got annoyed and said I was overreacting and should be grateful for the expensive ring. I couldn't sleep that night. His behavior was so bizarre, so cruel. Around 3 a.m., I heard his phone buzz. He was passed out drunk, so I checked it. There was a message from Steve W. saying, "Did she buy it? Is it done?" My hands shaking, I opened their message history. Steve wasn't Steve. It was Tracy, his pregnant girlfriend of 18 months. The announcement was Owen's sick solution to explain why he'd need to be supporting a friend through tough times, when actually he'd be with her during her pregnancy. I scrolled through hundreds of messages, pictures of them together, screenshots of my personal calendar so he could plan their dates when I was busy, pictures of me that he'd sent her to mock. He'd been sharing our most intimate conversations, financial details, the final blow. They'd been in our home while I was at my mom's birthday weekend. They'd slept in our bed, taken pictures in our shower. She'd tried on my clothes, and they'd taken the pregnancy test that morning. She actually was pregnant with his child. I didn't confront him. I made a plan. Over the next week, I pretended everything was normal. I contacted Tracy privately, and surprisingly, she had no idea Owen was married. He told her I was his unstable sister, who lived with him because I couldn't function alone. The pictures of us together, explained away as keeping up appearances for family. She was devastated. We met secretly. She showed me more evidence. Love letters, gifts, plans they'd made for their future. He'd bought them tickets to Paris for a baby moon, using our joint account. He'd been systematically stealing from our savings to fund his double life. Over $10,000 gone. 3 weeks after the announcement, I organized a pregnancy celebration dinner at our house. I invited everyone who'd been at the fundraiser, family, friends, colleagues, neighbors. Owen was nervous but played along, thinking I'd finally accepted the lie. As everyone gathered, I stood up to give a toast. I thanked them for coming to celebrate this special time. Then I announced I had a presentation about our journey to parenthood. So yeah, picture this. Our living room is packed. The same people who just a few weeks ago were hugging me, crying, telling me how happy they were, are all back in my house, plates of catered Italian food in their hands, wine everywhere, my mom literally beaming from ear to ear. Owen's got his arm around me, squeezing my shoulder like he's the world's proudest husband. I can feel my jaw clench every time he does it, but I smile because I have worked so damn hard for this moment. Honestly, if you've ever had to fake joy while your insides are boiling, you know the feeling. My stomach was in knots. I was sweating in places I didn't even know could sweat. My hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped my glass. But I kept it together because I knew what was about to happen would be worth every second of this humiliation. I let everyone settle in. People are chatting, passing around baby name books. I kid you not, someone actually brought one, and Owen's dad is already offering to build us a crib. My mom is whispering to my aunt about knitting tiny hats. God. I stand up, tap my glass, and ask for everyone's attention. Owen looks at me with this smug, "See, I told you this would be fun," sort of smile, and I want to slap it off his face. But I don't. I just smile back. "Thank you all for being here," I say. "You've all been so supportive. It means the world to me and Owen." I swallow so hard I almost choke. I told you I'd have a little presentation about our journey to parenthood. So let's walk down memory lane together. I hook my laptop up to the TV and start the slideshow. At first, it's just normal stuff. Photos of me and Owen from when we first met. In the airport, for those asking, because we got stuck on a delayed flight and ended up sharing a $12 sandwich at 2 a.m. Not a cutesy rom-com story, but whatever. Our wedding, vacations, dumb couple selfies. The crowd is eating it up, laughing, awing, and then I flip the slide. The first text appears on the screen, a screenshot. It's Owen, texting Steve W., but the message is coming from Tracy's actual number. I made sure to highlight it on the slide. "Thank you, iMessage, for letting me show contact info." The message, "Did she buy it? Is it done?" The room goes silent, like dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Owen's smile starts to slip, just a little, and he shoots me a look. Half confusion, half panic. I click again. The next slide is a photo of Tracy, smiling, very clearly pregnant, standing in our bathroom, holding up a positive test. The timestamp is right there. My shower curtain, my shampoo bottle, my robe on the hook. People start shifting. My cousin literally gasps. My dad's jaw drops. I click again. Screenshots of messages. Owen sending her pictures of me, captioned, "Look at her? Can you believe she still thinks I love her?" The room starts murmuring. Owen is frozen. He tries to stand up and say something, but I just raise my hand and say, "Sit down." I'm shaking, but I don't care. I am done letting him control the narrative. Next slide, bank statements. Transfers from our joint account to some Paris travel fund. Receipts for gifts. A plane ticket to Paris in both their names. I zoom in on the dates, right after my miscarriage. The room is starting to turn on him. His mom looks like she's about to throw up. I keep going. More messages. Tracy's love letters to Owen. Photos of them in my clothes, in my bed. My best friend covers her mouth, looks at me like she wants to kill him herself. The final slide. A WhatsApp from Owen to Tracy, bragging about how easy it was to convince the crazy sister, M.E., to host the fundraiser, and how he'd use the pregnancy as cover to spend more time with Tracy once her belly started to show. I put that one up for a solid 10 seconds, just letting everyone read. I wanted it burned into their memories. And then I close the laptop. I look right at Owen, who is now white as a sheet, sweating, stammering, trying to explain himself. But honestly, he can't even string together a single coherent sentence. He's looking around for a friendly face, but there's nothing. Not even his mom will look at him. I say, "So, Owen, do you want to tell everyone the real reason you needed so much support lately? Or should I keep going?" He tries to talk. He really does. He stands up, starts blabbering about me being unstable, that I'm confused, that it's all a misunderstanding. He says Tracy is just a friend, that the texts are out of context. Yeah? Out of context? Try me, asshole. At this point, my mom, my sweet, gentle, cardigan-wearing mom, stands up and walks over to him. She looks him dead in the eye and says, "Get out of my daughter's house." And then, in front of everyone, she takes the ring off my finger and throws it at him. It bounces off his chest and lands in his pasta. I swear to God, I almost laughed. Owen tries to grab my arm, but my dad steps in, shoves him back. There's yelling. My uncle steps between us. A couple of his friends try to intervene, but my sister is already on the phone, calling Tracy. I had warned her ahead of time that she might need to show up. Tracy, to her credit, is already parked outside with her mom. She wanted backup, and honestly, I get it. So what happens? Tracy walks in, pregnant belly and all. She makes eye contact with Owen and just says, "You told me she was your sister." The room erupts. His parents start shouting at him. My mom is crying. My best friend is hugging me so tight I can barely breathe. Tracy's mom is fully ready to throw hands. And Owen, he tries to run. Actually tries to run out of the house. Except my neighbor, bless her 5'2" retired volleyball coach Hart, blocks the door and says, "You're not going anywhere until you explain yourself." So now he's trapped, surrounded by everyone he's lied to for years. And he has no idea what to say. He finally starts yelling at me, calling me vindictive, crazy, saying I'm ruining his life, that I set him up. I let him scream. I don't care. I am shaking, but I am not moving. Not this time. I look at everyone and I say, "I'm not pregnant. I was never pregnant. But Owen's girlfriend is." I motion to Tracy, who is now sobbing into her mom's arms. He's been lying to all of us, stealing from me, cheating, gaslighting me for years. I turn to Owen and say, "You're done here." My dad opens the door. Owen finally bolts, slamming into the porch railing on the way out, nearly falling down the steps. That night, I barely sleep. The adrenaline is insane. I keep replaying everything in my head. My phone is blowing up with messages. Some people apologizing for not seeing it sooner, some just checking I'm okay. Tracy and I end up texting until 3 a.m. She's devastated but also relieved in a weird way to finally know the truth. But the fallout? Oh, the fallout is just beginning. Owen's stuff is still in the house. His parents are texting me, begging me not to press charges. My boss is asking if I need time off. Tracy's mom wants to know if we can meet. And Owen? He's about to find out what happens when you humiliate and betray the wrong woman. If you think this is wild, just wait for what happens next. I am not letting this end quietly. Part 2 coming soon. First update. Okay, so if you read my first post, you know what went down. If you didn't, buckle up anyway. Because things since the slideshow have been just a level of chaos I wasn't prepared for. Even after nuking my own living room in front of like 50 people. I keep thinking, surely I've seen the worst, right? Nope. If anything, it's like people saw the fireworks and just decided to set their own lives on fire for a turn. It's been a few weeks since that night. I guess I should start with the immediate aftermath. Because LOL, apparently you can't just drop a bomb like that and then expect your phone to stop vibrating for the next 48 hours. I was getting texts, DMs, even a couple of old-school voicemails from people who'd been at the dinner and people who'd only heard about it secondhand. My notifications were so insane, I genuinely thought about throwing my phone into the compost and starting fresh. At first, most of the messages were classic OMG, are you okay? And I can't believe Owen did that. But it didn't take long for the spin to start. Owen somehow, despite being the actual definition of caught, started reaching out to people. Mutual friends, some of my own extended family, plus his entire side, obviously. I know because my cousin Savannah sent me a screenshot. Owen telling her that I'd lost it, that I'd hacked his phone and fabricated messages because I couldn't handle him leaving and wanted attention. I mean, the sheer audacity. But it worked on some people, especially the ones who are conflict avoidant and just want things to go back to normal. There's always a subset, right? People who don't want drama because it makes their lives messy. Here's the part that still makes my jaw clench. Owen's parents, who were at my house for the whole reveal, did not call me. Not even a, "How are you doing?" Instead, his mom texted my mom saying it was unfortunate how the situation was handled, and that maybe it would be best if Owen could come by to collect his things without further escalation. My mom, who is usually the most patient, cardigan-wearing, tea-brewing person alive, called me, and I could hear her practically hissing down the line. She said, "If anyone is doing the escalating, it's their son." I wanted to laugh and cry at the same time. Owen, meanwhile, was blowing up my phone with messages that got progressively nastier as the hours ticked by. At first, it was a lot of, "Let's talk like adults, and we can fix this if you just apologize for embarrassing me." Apologize? For exposing his actual double life? I have no words. When I ignored him, it turned to threats. He said he'd make sure everyone knows what you've done, that I'd be sorry when people find out who you really are. He even accused me of ruining Tracy's life, and that I should watch myself because people talk. I blocked him. He started emailing. I blocked those. He started messaging through random numbers, then tried to get to me through mutual friends. He even called my dad. My dad, who has never liked Owen, not even at our wedding. Dad answered and just said, "Lose my number." I found out about this later when my dad showed up at my place, holding his phone like it had a disease. So let's talk about the family fallout, because honestly, I thought the friend group would be the biggest mess. Nope. Family drama is on a whole other level. My mom wanted to host a healing dinner and invite Owen's parents. Like we could all just sit down and untangle the last 5 years over roast chicken and store-bought pie. My dad, on the other hand, wanted to file a police report for fraud. Not sure he understands what counts as fraud but points for effort. Meanwhile, my brother Hank started a group chat called Owen is Dead to Us and kept adding Owen back in every time he left, just to annoy him. But the wildest part? Tracy. Tracy, who I honestly thought would just vanish into the ether to lick her wounds, called me, not a text, an actual call. She said, "I don't know who to talk to. My mom is furious and wants to move us out of state. Owen keeps showing up at my work. I don't know what to do." I told her flat out I wasn't her therapist, but also, I'm not a monster. She needed someone who understood how manipulative Owen could be, and apparently that someone was me, so we met up at a coffee shop. Yes, I know, classic. But it was neutral ground and her mom was parked outside the whole time, watching me like I might bite. Tracy looked exhausted, like she hadn't slept in a month. She pushed a stack of envelopes across the table, her hands shaking. "He's still sending me these," she said. Inside were cards with Owen's signature, plus a couple of receipts for stuff he'd apparently bought for the baby. With my money, I might add. Tracy said she was considering filing for a restraining order, but her mom wasn't sure if it'd just make things worse. I had no advice for that. I barely knew how to get through my own day at that point. We sat there a while, just two women who'd been lied to, and for a weird moment, it was almost normal. I don't know. There was this sense that neither of us was the villain here, even if the story looked wild from the outside. Back at home, things were anything but normal. I had to deal with practical stuff, changing the locks, figuring out which bills were in my name. Spoiler, not as many as I thought. Getting Owen's junk packed up. My mom insisted on helping, which meant she showed up with 3 empty suitcases and a box of lemon bars, lecturing me about setting boundaries, while also putting my laundry away and reorganizing my pantry. I didn't have the heart to stop her. Dad came by twice, mostly to glare at the door and threaten to break Owen's legs if he showed up, which for my dad is a lot. Here's where things got even messier. Owen started playing dirty. He emailed our landlord, who I'd never even met in person — Owen always handled that stuff — and tried to get me taken off the lease. Claimed I was no longer a resident, and was harassing him and his pregnant partner. I found out because I got an email from the landlord asking for clarification. I had to send over my ID, utility bills, and a copy of the marriage certificate just to prove I lived there. The landlord was awkward about it, said he didn't want to get involved in personal disputes, but then started dropping hints that maybe one of us should consider moving out for everyone's peace of mind. The biggest shock was how many people just didn't want to pick a side at all. I mean, I get it. Nobody wants to be in the middle of a breakup. But after everything that happened, I thought there'd be some basic sense of right and wrong. Instead, it was all, let's just move on. It's none of our business. And, my personal favorite, these things are never black and white. Like, sorry, but if your spouse fakes your pregnancy to cover for his real one with someone else, I'm pretty sure that's not a gray area. But whatever. People will do anything to avoid drama in their own lives. That being said, there were real consequences. Owen tried to come back to the house to get his stuff. I told him to text me a list and I'd leave it on the porch. Instead, he showed up while I was at home, pounding on the door, yelling that I was hiding his property. I called my dad, who showed up in like 10 minutes flat. There was this weird standoff on the porch. Owen shouting, Dad standing there with his arms crossed, me behind the door texting Brenda to call the neighbor if things got ugly. Owen finally left, but not before threatening to call the cops for theft. I told him to go ahead and try. My parents ramped things up after that. Mom called Owen's mom, which went about as well as you'd expect. Owen's mom insisted, marriage is hard, and that boys will be boys. I almost threw up just hearing that secondhand. My mom told her if Owen showed up at my place again, she'd file a restraining order herself, and then hung up. Dad, meanwhile, started researching marital asset division and left printouts all over my kitchen. Thanks, Dad. I did actually talk to Owen one more time, in person, because he wouldn't stop emailing about his stuff and his rights. We met in the driveway, because there was no way I was letting him inside again. He tried to act all calm, saying he just wanted to resolve things peacefully, but then started ranting about how I'd ruined everything and turned everyone against him. I told him, point blank, that he did that all by himself. He got in my face, accusing me of manipulating Tracy and stealing his money. I told him if he kept harassing me or Tracy, I'd file for a restraining order for both of us. He made a big show of laughing, but his hands were shaking. I didn't back down. I said, "You're not coming back in. End of story." He left, but not before slamming his fist into the mailbox so hard the door fell off. I had to fix it with duct tape. Such a fitting metaphor. Tracy and I aren't friends, not really, but there's this weird connection now. She texts sometimes, usually late at night, with updates about Owen trying to reach out or her mom wanting to move. I send short, blunt replies, mostly because I don't know what else to say, but I did help her block his number and showed her how to lock down her socials. There's also the money problem. I found out Owen drained more from our joint account than I realized. Little withdrawals, gift cards, random cash apps. I had to go through months of statements, highlight everything, and send it to the bank just to get them to freeze the account. The bank was sympathetic but slow, and Owen kept trying to reset the password. At one point, I got a fraud alert because he tried to use the account from some weird location in another city. It took days to sort out. At home, I can't even relax. Every sound outside makes me look up, half expecting Owen to be lurking around. My dad installed a camera by the front door, which just makes me more aware of how many people come and go in a day. The mail piling up, the dishes, the laundry, everything feels like both too much and not enough. I keep thinking, when does it get normal again? Does it ever? I guess the most surprising thing is how much people want there to be a good guy and a bad guy. Like, Owen is obviously trash for what he did, but I keep getting asked, did you see any signs? Or, do you think you drove him to cheat? As if relationships are some neat equation where someone's always at fault. Honestly, it's messier than that. Owen's always been a little mean, a little sharp with his jokes, but I thought it was just his way of dealing with stress. His mom's the same, always making digs, pretending it's all in good fun. I used to think if I just let things go, he'd chill out. Turns out, letting things go just made him push further. So yeah, that's where things are now. I'm not living some brave new life or whatever. I'm still in the house, still fielding calls from the landlord about cooperation between tenants, still trying to figure out how to get Owen's name off the utility bills. Tracy's still dealing with her own mess. Brenda is trying to get me to join her for a night out. but the idea of seeing people feels exhausting. But here's the thing. I'm not letting Owen back in. Not physically, not emotionally, not financially. Every day I get a little bit more stubborn about that. The last time he tried to get in touch, it was through a mutual friend, Ricardo, who called to hear my side. I told him, if Owen tries to come back here, I'll have the locks changed again and the cops on speed dial. And then today I got a letter, hand-delivered, not mailed, from Owen's lawyer. He's threatening to sue me for defamation and emotional distress and wants equitable division of assets. He wants the car, half the savings, and compensation for lost business opportunities because I slandered him publicly. I just stood there in my kitchen, letter in hand, trying to decide if I should laugh or scream. So, yeah. If anyone's still reading, congrats. You've made it to the end of round 2. I wish I could say I know what happens next, but honestly, I'm just getting started. Second update. Okay, so if you're still following this saga, props to you for sticking around. I honestly thought things would calm down after the lawyer letter, but lol, I should have known better. If anything, that was just Owen getting warmed up. I swear, the universe must be bored because it's just throwing new curveballs every other day. Let's start with the lawyer letter, because that's pretty much where everything took off. The thing was hand-delivered, shoved under my door in a cheap envelope with my name spelled wrong. Classic. Inside the letter was full of legalese about defamation, emotional distress, lost opportunities, and Owen's demand for the car, half the savings, and compensation for public embarrassment. I read it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. I texted a picture of it to my brother Hank, who immediately replied with, "Is this real, or did he use ChatGPT for the template?" For a hot minute, I considered ignoring it, but my parents were not having that. My dad wanted to show this clown what a real lawsuit looks like, which, coming from a guy who hasn't worn a suit since 2009, was kind of funny. My mom, meanwhile, started calling anyone she knew who'd ever been through a divorce, asking if I could just get everything annulled for emotional reasons. I had to Google if that's a thing. Spoiler, it's not, at least not here. Their hearts were in the right place, but NGL, it just made me feel more alone sometimes. Like I love them, but I needed less energy and more actual help. So I did what normal people do. I Googled local attorneys, read a bunch of reviews, and ended up calling one. The phone call was awkward, mostly because I had to explain everything out loud, and the woman on the other end kept going, "Wait, he did what at the fundraiser?" She told me to take photos of everything, keep all communications, and not, under any circumstances, let Owen back in the house or agree to any private meetings. She also said the defamation claim was probably just bluster, but I should still be careful. So, great. The next few days were me hoarding receipts and texting Brenda every time I felt like throwing my phone through a window. Owen, for his part, kept ramping things up. He started showing up at the house again, first just knocking, then pounding, then standing outside for like half an hour, calling people on speaker so I could hear him. I watched him from the living room window, phone in hand, ready to call the cops if he tried anything. At one point, he brought his dad, who just stood there, arms folded, staring at the house like he was expecting me to come out and hand over the keys. Instead, I called my own dad, who actually showed up in slippers and an old hoodie, looking so unimpressed it was almost art. There was a silent standoff on the front lawn, 4 grown adults just standing there, not saying anything, all pretending it wasn't freezing. Eventually, Owen's dad muttered something and they left. I double-locked the door behind them and texted the whole family. If you see Owen or his dad, don't answer. I'll handle it. Meanwhile, the social fallout kept spreading. Some people started unfollowing me on Instagram, which, LOL, whatever, but others slid into my DMs to hear my side. It's weird how people you barely know feel like they're entitled to the details of your life if there's a whiff of drama. I kept my replies short. Brenda, on the other hand, went nuclear. She posted a story calling out Owen's narcissist energy, tagged him, and started a comment war that lasted 2 days. I muted everything because honestly, I was too busy dealing with real-life mess. The weirdest interactions, though, were with people I saw out in public. Like, I went to Target for paper towels and a candle, and ran into Savannah from Owen's side. She did this awkward half-smile and said, "So, how's everything?" Like we were catching up after a vacation? There was a pause that lasted way too long, and I just shrugged and said, "You know." She nodded like that explained it, and then immediately turned to the next aisle. It's wild how people just want the bare minimum so they can say they checked in. Owen's mom finally reached out. Not to apologize, obviously, but to discuss the logistics. She wanted to know when Owen could pick up his belongings that I was refusing to release. I told her flat out that I wasn't refusing anything. I'd packed up everything he'd listed, put it in the garage, and changed the code. She got snippy, saying it was unreasonable not to trust Owen to come inside and get the rest. I said, after what he did, he's not setting foot in this house again. She started lecturing me about forgiveness and how everyone makes mistakes. I told her this wasn't a mistake. It was a pattern, and that if Owen tried to come inside, I'd call the cops. The call ended with her saying she was so disappointed in how I'd handled things. I just laughed. If being disappointing to people like that is wrong, I don't want to be right. The house was weird without Owen. Not in a sad way, more like, every time I walked into a room, I noticed all the little things he used to do to annoy me. Leaving his shoes in the hallway, using my favorite mug, turning the thermostat down to save money. Now it was just quiet. Kind of peaceful, actually, when my parents weren't hovering. The money stuff was still a nightmare. The bank froze our joint account, but Owen kept trying to access it from different devices. I got emails about suspicious activity, and then, one afternoon, a call from the fraud department. They wanted to confirm if I was trying to transfer several $1,000s out. I wasn't. I had to go in person, bring my ID, sit in a tiny office with a guy who looked about 12 and explain the whole thing. Again. He was polite but clearly uncomfortable, especially when I showed him the lawyer letter. He said the account would stay frozen until we sorted out the divorce. I left with a headache and a stack of paperwork. Meanwhile, Tracy kept popping up. She texted me late one night saying she was scared Owen might show up at her place. She said he'd been calling nonstop, sometimes from blocked numbers, sometimes even threatening to take the baby if she didn't help him clear his name. I told her bluntly that she needed to talk to someone. Family, police, anyone. She said her mom was already on alert, but she just wanted someone to hear her. I felt for her, I really did. But I also felt overwhelmed. I can't fix her life and mine at the same time. The next day, Brenda showed up with coffee and donuts, like some kind of chaos fairy godmother. She sat with me at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone, reading out messages from people taking sides. Apparently, Ricardo, Owen's friend who was always a little too invested in our marriage, was trying to convince people that I was dangerous and unstable. Brenda laughed so hard she almost snorted coffee. She said, "If you're the unstable one, I'm a yoga influencer." We both lost it for a minute, and honestly, it felt good to just laugh about something. But then Brenda got serious. She asked if I'd thought about moving out, starting fresh somewhere else. I hadn't. The idea made me feel weird, like I'd be running away. At the same time, staying here meant living with all the ghosts of Owen's nonsense. Brenda said, "You don't owe anyone this house. You can start over." I told her I'd think about it, but I could see in her face she wanted me to go. Not because she thought I was weak, but because she was worried I'd never really be free if I stayed. My parents, of course, had their own opinions. Mom wanted me to move in with them, just for a while, but I knew that would last maybe 2 days before we all lost our minds. Dad wanted me to stand my ground and not let Owen win. They started bickering about it at dinner one night, right in front of me, like I wasn't even there. Mom said, "She needs support." Dad said, "She needs independence." I snapped that I needed them to stop arguing and let me figure it out. They both went quiet, which, TBH, was a relief. Things came to a head when Owen tried to come back for his tools. He texted me first, said he'd be by at noon. I told him I'd leave them on the porch. At 11:30, he started calling, then texting, then calling again. At noon, he was at the door, banging so hard the neighbor's dog started barking. I opened the window and told him his stuff was outside. He shouted that I was stealing from him, that he knew his rights, and that if I didn't let him in, he'd call the cops. I said, "Go ahead." He started recording me with his phone, narrating that I was refusing lawful entry. I rolled my eyes and told him to leave, or I'd call the cops myself. He finally grabbed his stuff and stomped off, but not before kicking over the flower pot by the porch. Real mature. After that, I got a text from Tracy. She said Owen had tried to contact her again, this time through a mutual friend, Cecilia. Apparently, he was telling people that I'd brainwashed Tracy into turning against him, that I was jealous and wanted to ruin his life. Cecilia, to her credit, told him he was out of line, but she also texted me to say she hoped I could find it in my heart to forgive. I wanted to scream. Why is it always on women to forgive the people who hurt them? Things weren't just tense with Owen, though. Tracy's family was dealing with their own drama. Her mom called me directly, wanting to know if I thought Owen would really try to take the baby. I told her I couldn't predict anything, but that she should keep documenting everything, just in case. She sounded tired, like she'd aged 10 years in a month. I felt a weird kinship with her, even though we barely knew each other. It wasn't all misery, though. There were weird, almost funny moments. Like when my mom showed up with a box of baby clothes she'd bought just in case. She sat on the edge of my bed, holding a tiny hat, and said she felt stupid for believing Owen. I told her she wasn't stupid, just hopeful. And that wasn't a bad thing. She hugged me so tight I thought my ribs would crack. Dad popped his head in, saw us both crying, and immediately retreated to the garage. But the tension never really let up. Every time I thought things might settle, something new would happen. Owen filed a motion to have me removed from the property because I was creating a hostile environment. The landlord called again, wanting to know when this would all be over. I tried to explain, but he clearly just wanted to avoid drama. I started looking up apartments just to see what was out there, and realized how expensive everything is now. Part of me wanted to just leave it all behind, but another part was stubborn. Why should I be the one to leave when I did nothing wrong? Things boiled over at the next family dinner. Mom wanted to invite Owen's parents to talk things out. Dad said, "Over my dead body." My brother Hank said, "Let's just egg their house." He was joking, mostly. I lost it. I told everyone I was sick of being the only one who had to keep it together, that I was tired of being the bigger person. There was a long silence. Then Mom apologized, Dad apologized. Even Hank put his phone down and apologized. I said, I just want a normal life again. No one disagreed. The last straw, for now anyway, came this week. I was coming home from the store, arms full of groceries, when I saw Owen's car in the driveway. I stopped cold. He was sitting on the hood, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. I walked up and told him to leave. He said he just wanted to talk. I said there was nothing left to say. He said he'd take me down with him if I didn't make things right. I told him if he didn't leave, I'd call the cops. He got in my face, close enough that I could smell his cologne, and started ranting about how I ruined his life, how he could have had it all if I'd just played along. I told him again to leave. He finally did, but not before spitting on the ground and saying, "You'll regret this." So yeah, that's where things stand now. And something tells me it's about to get even messier. Final update. So I guess this is the final chapter, or at least the last one I'm posting here, because at this point my life barely feels like mine anymore. If you've made it through the last 3 rounds, congrats. You basically have a PhD in secondhand chaos. I kept thinking there would be a tipping point, some big moment where things settled. But honestly, it was like every time I thought I was getting my balance, something new landed on my head. After the driveway showdown, Owen on the hood of his car, threatening, me clutching groceries and trying not to scream, I didn't sleep much for days. My phone was a landmine, texts from Brenda asking if I wanted to crash at her place, my dad sending links to how to file a restraining order, my mom alternating between recipes and maybe you should just move home for a bit. Meanwhile, the legal stuff just kept grinding. The lawyer I'd found, let's call her Greta because apparently I collect Gretas in my life now, was decent at her job, but there's only so much you can do when the other side is, like, allergic to reality. Owen's lawyer sent another letter, this one demanding immediate mediation. Greta told me not to panic, it was just more posturing. But NGL, I felt like I was being stalked by paperwork. Every day, some new envelope or email or notification. At one point, I started keeping a folder in my notes app just to track who was threatening what. There's a weird kind of tired that comes from fighting over the same stuff on repeat. It's like being stuck in a glitchy video game. Same level, different monsters. Owen would text about his tools, then about his PlayStation, then about how I owed him for emotional labor. I started leaving his stuff out on the porch in boxes labeled in Sharpie, tools, electronics, junk. He'd pick them up at weird hours, never alone, sometimes with his dad, sometimes with Ricardo, whose stare always lasted a beat too long. They never came in, but the tension was always there, like a thunderstorm that wouldn't break. And then there was Tracy. I didn't expect her to stay in touch, but she did. A couple times a week, mostly late-night texts, sometimes a photo of her cat, sometimes just a meme, sometimes venting about how Owen was sending her guilt trip emails. Her mom called once too, asking if I'd heard anything about Owen planning something. I hadn't, and I told her that, but I could hear the worry in her voice. Tracy was due any day now. The last time we met, her idea, not mine, was at a little cafe uptown. She looked so tired. She said she was trying to get her head straight before the baby came, and wanted to know if I thought Owen would really try to go for custody. I told her, honestly, I didn't know what Owen was capable of anymore, but to keep her family close and document everything. Meanwhile, my parents kept circling, each on their own orbit. Mom baked enough muffins for a small army and tried to convince me to take a weekend at a spa with her. Dad spent a suspicious amount of time in the garage, fixing things that didn't need fixing, and going on walks where he just happened to pass by Owen's place. Hank started making a spreadsheet of potential replacement sons-in-law, which was mostly just a list of 90s boy band members, and that one guy from the gym who always wears Crocs. At least he made me laugh. But the house itself started to feel less like mine. I caught myself looking at the walls. The stupid lamp Owen always insisted was retro, the rug he bought at a yard sale. It felt like living in someone else's leftovers. The landlord kept calling, asking for updates, and hinting that maybe it'd be better if I moved out when the lease was up. I started half-heartedly scrolling Zillow, not really ready to make a decision, but just wanting to see what else was out there. Everything was too expensive, too far, too not home. The real escalation came not with a bang, but with a series of tiny, stupid annoyances. First, the utilities. Owen had called and tried to get the internet shut off for non-payment, even though I'd already switched it to my name. The company called me, all confused, and I spent an hour on hold just to get it sorted. Then the car insurance. Owen reported the car stolen, even though the title was in both our names. That one actually brought a cop to the house, who after a very awkward 15 minutes and a tour of the glove box, left looking bored and annoyed. The car stayed with me, but the paperwork seemed endless. Then it was the trash bill. I got a notice that the account was delinquent. Turns out Owen hadn't been paying it for months, and the company was threatening to stop pickup. I called, explained everything, paid the balance, and asked them to put it in my name. The lady on the phone sounded exhausted, like she dealt with this kind of drama daily. She said, Just make sure he can't call to cancel anything else. If only it were that easy. But the worst was the day Owen's mom showed up at the house. No warning, just rang the bell at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, holding a box of Owen's childhood mementos and a folder of papers she wanted me to sign. She started in with the same old lines. How boys will be boys. How I shouldn't make things harder than they need to be. How family is all you have in the end. I told her, as politely as I could, that I wasn't signing anything until my lawyer had seen it, and that she needed to stop showing up unannounced. She tried to push past me, said she just wanted to get a few things from Owen's old room. I blocked the door. She tried to guilt trip me, but I didn't move. Eventually, she gave up, left the box on the porch, and shuffled back to her car. That night, I got a text from Tracy. She was in the hospital, early labor, baby coming. She said she was scared, didn't want Owen to know yet, but wanted me to know just in case. I didn't go, obviously, but I texted her back, told her she'd be a good mom, and that she wasn't alone. The next day, she sent a picture of a healthy baby girl. I showed my mom, who cried. Dad said, "At least some good came out of all this." Hank added the baby's name to his spreadsheet, which made everyone laugh, even through the weirdness. If there's any lesson in this, it's that people will surprise you. Sometimes in the worst ways, sometimes in the best. So, yeah. If you read all this, thanks for being here. And if you're ever at trivia night and see a girl ordering too much pizza and arguing about 90s song lyrics, come say hi. Just don't ask me about Owen. That chapter's closed, even if the rest of the book is still unwritten.